where faith, inspiration, and storytelling come together to bring the Bible to life like never before. Our mission is to take you on a spiritual journey through the Bible's stories, from the creation in Genesis to the revelations of the end times. Welcome to Timeless Bible Journeys.
Welcome, dear listener, to Timeless Bible Journeys, where the mysteries of ancient scripture come alive. Here, we explore the profound questions that have echoed through centuries. Questions that challenge the mind, stir the heart, and awaken the soul. Today, I invite you to embark on a journey that bridges the ancient past and our present-day curiosity. Together, we'll unravel a story of unparalleled strength, an ancient warrior, and the whispers of something more, something beyond the natural. What was the source of Goliath's strength? Was he merely a man of extraordinary stature and might? Or did his power hint at a connection to the enigmatic Nephilim, those mysterious beings mentioned in the Bible's earliest chapters? But before we delve into this compelling story, let me ask you this. Have you ever faced a challenge so great, so overwhelming, that it felt insurmountable? Perhaps it wasn't a towering giant on a battlefield, but a personal struggle, a fear, or a seemingly unmovable obstacle in your life. The story of Goliath is not just a tale of physical might. It's a reflection of our own battles and the courage required to overcome them. So, whether you're a seeker of ancient knowledge, a lover of spiritual insight, or simply someone who enjoys uncovering the layers of history and scripture, you've come to the right place. Here at Timeless Bible Journeys, we believe that these ancient stories hold timeless lessons that continue to inspire and guide us today. Now, let's set the stage. Picture this. The sun rises over the hills of ancient Judah. A vast valley stretches between two armies locked in a tense standoff. On one side, the Israelites, hesitant, uncertain, their faith shaken. On the other, the Philistines, confident and emboldened, with their champion standing at the forefront, Goliath, towering, armored, and utterly terrifying. The biblical text paints a vivid picture of Goliath, a man whose height reached almost 10 feet, his armor shimmering bronze under the sun, his spear so massive that its iron point alone weighed more than most men could lift. For 40 days, he mocked the Israelites, daring anyone to face him in single combat. And yet, no one dared. What could make one man so fearsome, so powerful, that an entire army would stand paralyzed with fear? This is where the mystery deepens. Was Goliath simply a man of extraordinary physical proportions, the result of genetics or perhaps a medical condition? Or did his strength and stature have deeper roots? Traces of an ancient and supernatural lineage tied to the mysterious Nephilim, a race described in the earliest chapters of Genesis. The Bible, as we'll see, offers tantalizing hints. Goliath's hometown, Gath, was known as a refuge for the Anakim, a race of giants thought to descend from the Nephilim. But who were the Nephilim? Were they fallen angels, as some ancient traditions suggest? Or simply human beings whose deeds and presence were so overwhelming that they were remembered as legends? And how did these ancient stories of giants survive beyond the flood, echoing through the ages to find their place in Goliath's story? Stay with me, because in today's episode we'll unpack these questions and more. We'll journey through scripture, explore ancient traditions, and even touch on the fascinating science that might explain Goliath's size and strength. Together, we'll weave through history, faith, and mystery to uncover the truth about this legendary warrior. But before we begin, let me remind you, if you enjoy exploring the Bible's hidden depths and uncovering the lessons within, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Timeless Bible Journeys. And be sure to join the conversation in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and insights. Now, take a deep breath. Let your mind travel back to that ancient battlefield, where a giant stands waiting, a shepherd approaches with a sling, and the story of Goliath begins to unfold. Let's journey together into the mystery. Biblical lineage and historical context. Goliath, a name synonymous with might and fear, described in the Bible as a towering giant from Gath. Goliath's incredible size and strength struck terror into the hearts of the Israelites. But who was he really, and what made him so formidable? Let's begin with what we know from Scripture. The story of Goliath is found in 1 Samuel 17, where he's described as a warrior over 9 feet tall, clad in armor weighing 125 pounds, and wielding a massive spear. But could such extraordinary traits have a supernatural origin? Or might they be explained by something more human? To uncover the origins of Goliath's strength, we must first delve into his lineage and the historical context that surrounds it. The Bible provides us with clues about his ancestry, offering a fascinating glimpse into a world where giants, such as Goliath, were more than mere myth. They were part of a cultural and historical tapestry that shaped the ancient Near East. Goliath is described as a warrior from Gath, one of the principal cities of the Philistines. The Philistines were a powerful seafaring people who settled along the southern coast of Canaan, known for their advanced military techniques and fierce warriors. But Gath, in particular, had a reputation that extended beyond its military might. It was associated with the Anakim, a race of giants mentioned multiple times in the Old Testament. The Anakim are first introduced in the Book of Numbers. When Moses sent spies to scout the land of Canaan, they returned with a chilling report. In Numbers 13:33, they said, "We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." This passage links the Anakim to the enigmatic Nephilim, suggesting that Goliath's lineage may trace back to these ancient, giant-like beings. But who were the Nephilim, and why does their legacy carry such weight? The Nephilim are first mentioned in Genesis 6:04, a verse that has puzzled theologians and scholars for centuries. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. This cryptic passage has sparked countless interpretations. Some suggest that the sons of God were fallen angels who mingled with human women, producing offspring with extraordinary physical attributes, the Nephilim. Others propose that the term sons of God refers to the righteous descendants of Seth, while the daughters of men were from Cain's corrupted lineage, and the term Nephilim represents moral rather than physical corruption. Regardless of the interpretation, the connection between the Nephilim and the Anakim is intriguing. After the flood, which is described as God's way of cleansing the earth of corruption, the Bible still mentions the presence of giants. How could this be? One explanation is that the Anakim and other post-flood giants, like the Rephaim, were remnants of this pre-flood genetic legacy. These giants appear throughout the biblical narrative, often described as fearsome warriors and enemies of Israel. The book of Joshua provides another important clue. After leading the Israelites into the Promised Land, Joshua and his army waged a series of battles to claim the land. In Joshua 11:22 it says, "No Anakites were left in Israelite territory, only in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod did any survive." This passage explicitly identifies Gath as a refuge for the Anakim, and it's no coincidence that Goliath later emerges from this city. By the time of David's encounter with Goliath in Samuel 17, the Anakim and their descendants had become legendary figures, known for their extraordinary size and strength. Goliath, towering over his enemies and wielding weapons that seemed impossible for a normal man to lift, embodied this legacy of physical might. His presence on the battlefield wasn't just intimidating, it was a reminder of the ancient giants who once roamed the land. But was Goliath's strength purely a result of his lineage? Or was there something deeper at play? While his ancestry connects him to the Anakim and possibly the Nephilim, the Bible stops short of explicitly labeling him as part of the Nephilim. This ambiguity leaves room for speculation, but it also invites us to reflect on the broader themes of faith and courage that his story represents. In the historical context of the ancient Near East, where physical strength and military dominance often determined survival, Goliath's stature and skill made him a prized warrior. But the fact that his story survives not as a tale of his victories but of his defeat at the hands of a young shepherd shows us that his strength alone was not enough. As we move forward, we'll continue to explore the various explanations for Goliath's size and strength, from supernatural connections to natural genetics, and how his story serves as a timeless lesson in faith, courage, and the triumph of the seemingly powerless over the powerful. The mystery of the Nephilim. To understand the possibility of Goliath's connection to the Nephilim, we must delve deeper into the enigma surrounding these mysterious beings. The Nephilim are among the most debated figures in biblical scripture, appearing in only a handful of passages, yet casting a long shadow over the narrative of ancient history. The first mention of the Nephilim occurs in Genesis 6:1-4, a passage that has fascinated theologians for centuries. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." At its core, this passage raises more questions than it answers. Who were the sons of God? Who were the daughters of humans? And what exactly were the Nephilim? Let's explore some of the most prominent interpretations. 1. The fallen angels hypothesis. One of the most popular interpretations is that the sons of God were fallen angels, heavenly beings who defied God's order and took human women as wives. Their union produced offspring, the Nephilim, who were giants with extraordinary physical strength and abilities. This view is supported by ancient Jewish texts, such as the Book of Enoch, which expands on the Genesis account. In the Book of Enoch, the sons of God are described as a group of angels called the Watchers, who descended to earth, lusted after human women, and fathered a race of giants. These giants, described as massive and violent, eventually became a significant source of corruption on earth, prompting God to cleanse the world with the flood. While the Book of Enoch is not considered part of the canonical Bible, its narrative has influenced many interpretations of the Nephilim. If this view is correct, Goliath's strength and size could be seen as a remnant of this supernatural lineage, carried forward through the descendants of the Anakim. 2. The lineage of Seth interpretation. Another interpretation, often favored by more traditional theological perspectives, sees the sons of God as the descendants of Seth, Adam's righteous son. In this view, the daughters of humans refer to the descendants of Cain, whose lineage was marked by rebellion against God. According to this interpretation, the union of these two groups represents a spiritual and moral corruption, rather than a supernatural one. The term Nephilim is thought to describe individuals who were not necessarily giants in the physical sense, but rather fallen ones, or tyrants. Men who were renowned for their power, violence, and oppressive rule. Under this interpretation, Goliath would not be connected to a supernatural lineage, but rather to a historical tradition of powerful warriors who were remembered for their formidable presence and strength. His stature could then be attributed to natural genetics, amplified by his reputation as a fearsome champion. 3. Cultural and symbolic interpretations. Some scholars suggest that the Nephilim were not literal beings, but symbolic representations of human pride and rebellion against God. In this view, the Nephilim serve as a narrative device, highlighting the moral decline of humanity leading up to the flood. Their description as heroes of old, men of renown, could indicate that they were remembered not for their righteousness, but for their domination and the fear they instilled. If Goliath's connection to the Nephilim is symbolic rather than literal, it would emphasize his role as a representation of human arrogance and reliance on physical power, a stark contrast to David, whose strength came from faith and humility. 4. Post-flood giants. How did they survive? One of the most perplexing aspects of the Nephilim narrative is their apparent survival after the flood. Genesis 6:04 states that the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. This phrase suggests that remnants of the Nephilim lineage persisted in the post-flood world, giving rise to groups like the Anakim and Rephaim. The Anakim, as mentioned earlier, were described as a race of giants inhabiting the land of Canaan. When the Israelite spies reported seeing the Anakim in Numbers 13:33, they explicitly linked them to the Nephilim. This connection has led some to speculate that the Nephilim's supernatural traits, if they existed, may have been passed down through certain genetic lines, ultimately reaching Goliath and his kin in Gath. The ambiguity of the Nephilim. Ultimately, the Bible remains ambiguous about the nature and identity of the Nephilim. Were they supernatural giants, tyrannical rulers, or merely symbols of human corruption? Goliath's connection to them is equally unclear, and the lack of explicit references to the Nephilim in his story suggests that his strength and stature may have had other explanations. However, this ambiguity is part of what makes the story so compelling. The mystery of the Nephilim invites us to explore the intersection of the natural and the supernatural, challenging us to consider how ancient peoples understood the world around them and the forces that shaped their lives. In the next section, we'll examine how the story of the Nephilim and their descendants evolved after the flood, and explore possible natural explanations for Goliath's size and strength. Was his might a genetic anomaly or something more extraordinary? Let's continue our journey. The post-flood giants. The biblical narrative of giants doesn't end with the flood. In fact, some of the most intriguing questions arise from the presence of giants in the post-flood world. If the flood was meant to cleanse the earth of corruption, including the Nephilim mentioned in Genesis 6, how did giants like Goliath and others associated with the Anakim and Rephaim appear afterward? This puzzle has led to various interpretations, blending scripture, tradition, and speculation. 1. Giants after the flood. The biblical evidence. The Bible explicitly mentions the existence of giants after the flood, beginning with Numbers 13:33, where the Israelite spies report, "We saw the Nephilim there." The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. This statement links the Anakim, a race of giants inhabiting Canaan, to the pre-flood Nephilim, suggesting that remnants of this lineage somehow survived. In Deuteronomy 3:11, we are introduced to another giant, Og, king of Bashan, described as the last of the Rephaim, a term often associated with giants. His iron bed is said to measure 9 cubits in length, approximately 13 feet, highlighting his immense size and strength. These accounts make it clear that the presence of giants was not confined to the pre-flood world. Instead, they continued to play a role in the biblical narrative, particularly as adversaries of God's people. The survival of these giants raises important questions. Were they direct descendants of the pre-flood Nephilim, or did their size and strength have other origins? To explore these possibilities, we must examine the groups most frequently associated with post-flood giants, the Anakim, Rephaim, and related clans. 2. The Anakims. Goliath's likely ancestors. The Anakim are perhaps the most prominent group of giants mentioned in the post-flood era. They are first introduced in Deuteronomy 9 verse 2, where Moses describes them as a people strong and tall, like the Anakites. These giants lived in the hill country of Canaan and were renowned for their intimidating presence. Their name is directly tied to Goliath, who hailed from Gath, a city known to have remnants of the Anakim. In Joshua 11:22 we read that after the Israelite conquest of Canaan, no Anakites were left in Israelite territory. Only in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod did any survive. This passage directly connects Goliath's hometown to the remnants of the Anakim, making it likely that his extraordinary size and strength were inherited from this lineage. But were the Anakim directly descended from the Nephilim? The Bible offers no definitive answer, but the link made in Numbers 13:33 between the Anakim and the Nephilim provides a tantalizing possibility. If Goliath was indeed part of this lineage, his strength and size could represent the continuation of a genetic or supernatural trait passed down through generations. 3. The Rephaim, the broader legacy of giants. The term Rephaim is another name frequently associated with giants in the post-flood era. The Rephaim are mentioned throughout the Old Testament, often in connection with other groups of giants. For example, Genesis 14 describes a battle involving the Rephaim and other powerful tribes, suggesting that their influence extended beyond Canaan. One of the most detailed descriptions of the Rephaim comes from the story of Og, king of Bashan, in Deuteronomy. His massive size, as evidenced by his enormous iron bed, has led many to associate him with the legendary might of the pre-flood giants. Like the Anakim, the Rephaim are portrayed as adversaries of the Israelites, often serving as symbols of overwhelming challenges that required divine intervention to overcome. The Rephaim, Anakim, and other clans of giants represent a broader legacy of strength and dominance in the biblical narrative. Whether they were literal descendants of the Nephilim or simply a symbolic representation of fearsome enemies, their presence adds depth and complexity to the story of Goliath. 4. Theories on their survival. How, then, did giants like the Anakim and Rephaim survive the flood? Several theories attempt to address this question. Genetic remnants. Some scholars suggest that the genetic traits associated with the Nephilim survived through Noah's descendants. If the Nephilim's lineage was carried by one of Noah's family members, perhaps through intermarriage before the flood, it could explain the re-emergence of giants in the post-flood world. Independent origin. Another theory posits that the post-flood giants were not directly related to the Nephilim, but were instead the result of separate genetic anomalies or intermarriage between different tribes. This view aligns with the idea that giants were a recurring phenomenon in ancient cultures, not unique to the Bible. Supernatural explanation, finally. Some traditions hold that fallen angels may have once again interacted with humanity after the flood, creating a new generation of giants. While this view is speculative, it reflects the enduring mystery surrounding the origins of post-flood giants. 5. Goliath's connection to the giants. In light of this broader context, Goliath's identity as a giant takes on new significance. Whether his size was the result of genetic inheritance from the Anakim, a symbolic representation of human arrogance, or even a divine mystery, his story reflects the enduring struggle between faith and fear. As the descendant of an ancient and powerful lineage, Goliath stood as the ultimate test of courage and trust in God. The post-flood giants remind us that challenges, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, are a recurring theme in the human experience. Like David, we are called to face our giants not with our own strength, but with faith in something greater. In the next section, we'll explore how natural explanations, such as genetic conditions, could also shed light on Goliath's extraordinary stature and strength. Let's continue. Could science explain Goliath's size? As we've explored Goliath's potential connections to ancient giant clans and the mysterious Nephilim, we've seen how scripture and tradition provide rich explanations for his extraordinary size and strength. But could science offer an alternative, more natural explanation for Goliath's towering stature? Advances in modern medicine and genetics have shed light on rare conditions that could account for his physical attributes, and these insights offer a fascinating lens through which to view his story. 1. Gigantism and acromegaly. Medical conditions that cause unusual growth. One of the most plausible scientific explanations for Goliath's immense size is a medical condition called gigantism, or its related condition, acromegaly. Both are caused by an overproduction of growth hormones, often resulting from a benign tumor on the pituitary gland. While gigantism occurs during childhood, leading to overall proportional growth, acromegaly develops in adulthood and often results in enlarged hands, feet, facial features, and other physical changes. Individuals with gigantism or acromegaly can reach extraordinary heights, sometimes exceeding 8 feet tall, with corresponding increases in muscle mass and bone structure. Their physical size would naturally make them stronger than most people, though their strength may not always translate into agility or stamina. In Goliath's case, the Bible describes him as a man of extraordinary physical power, capable of wielding heavy armor and weapons, which aligns with the traits observed in individuals with these conditions. 2. The physical traits described in the Bible. The Bible's description of Goliath's height and physical attributes aligns with what we might expect from someone with gigantism. 1 Samuel 17:04 states that Goliath stood 6 cubits in a span, traditionally interpreted to mean approximately 9 feet 9 inches tall. However, some ancient manuscripts, like the Septuagint, suggest a more modest height of 6 feet 9 inches. Still exceptionally tall for the time. His armor and weaponry also emphasize his physical strength. Goliath wore a coat of scale armor weighing 5,000 shekels, around 125 pounds, and carried a massive spear with an iron point weighing 600 shekels, approximately 15 pounds. These details not only highlight his intimidating presence, but also suggest that his physical condition allowed him to handle such weight with ease. Interestingly, individuals with acromegaly sometimes exhibit distinct physical features, such as a prominent forehead or jawline, which may have contributed to Goliath's fearsome appearance on the battlefield. His towering frame and imposing figure would have made him an ideal champion for the Philistines, striking fear into the hearts of his enemies. 3. Possible limitations of gigantism. While gigantism could explain Goliath's size and strength, it may also hint at his vulnerabilities. Individuals with this condition often face significant health challenges, including joint pain, limited mobility, and vision problems caused by the pressure of the pituitary tumor on the optic nerves. Some have speculated that Goliath's reliance on heavy armor and slow movements during battle could reflect such limitations. In fact, his potential vision issues may explain why he didn't react quickly to David's approach or the stone from David's sling. If Goliath suffered from acromegaly, induced vision impairment, he may have had difficulty seeing objects in motion or at a distance. This would give David, with his agility and precision, a critical advantage in their encounter. 4. Genetic factors. The role of heredity. In addition to medical conditions, Goliath's extraordinary size could also have a genetic basis. The Anakim, the giant clan associated with Goliath's hometown of Gath, may have carried genes that predisposed them to exceptional height. Historical accounts of other giant clans in Canaan, such as the Rephaim, suggest that certain populations may have had a higher prevalence of genetic traits associated with growth anomalies. Even today, scientists have identified rare genetic mutations, such as those affecting the AIP gene, that contribute to familial gigantism. These mutations can cause the pituitary gland to produce excessive growth hormones, resulting in unusually tall individuals. It's possible that Goliath inherited such genetic traits from his ancestors, linking him to a broader lineage of physically imposing individuals. 5. Historical and cultural accounts of giants. It's worth noting that Goliath wasn't the only giant mentioned in ancient texts or history. Cultures around the world, from the Sumerians to the Greeks, have recorded stories of towering figures with incredible strength. While some of these accounts are clearly mythological, others are grounded in real historical figures who likely had conditions similar to gigantism. For example, in relatively modern history, figures like Robert Wadlow, who stood 8 feet 11 inches tall due to gigantism, demonstrate that such extraordinary height is possible, even without supernatural explanations. In Goliath's case, his status as a warrior and champion could have elevated his reputation, turning him into a legendary figure over time. 6. Balancing science and faith. While science offers compelling explanations for Goliath's physical stature, it doesn't diminish the spiritual significance of his story. Whether his size was the result of a genetic condition, a medical anomaly, or divine design, the central message remains. Goliath's strength, no matter how great, was not enough to overcome the power of faith and courage embodied by David. David's victory reminds us that human limitations, whether physical or otherwise, can be overcome through trust in something greater. Goliath's physical might, awe-inspiring as it was, became secondary to the lesson that true strength lies in faith, wisdom, and the willingness to confront challenges with determination. In the next section, we'll explore how the story of Goliath connects to broader themes of faith and triumph, and what lessons we can take from this ancient narrative into our modern lives. Let's continue. The role of faith in the narrative. The story of David and Goliath is not just a tale of physical confrontation, but a profound lesson in the power of faith. Beyond the awe-inspiring size and strength of Goliath lies a deeper narrative, one that emphasizes the triumph of belief, courage, and trust in God over the seemingly insurmountable forces of the world. This spiritual dimension transforms the encounter into more than a historical event. It becomes a timeless metaphor for facing the giants in our own lives. 1. Goliath's confidence in the physical. From the outset, Goliath is presented as a figure of overwhelming strength. His height, his armor, and his weapons all serve to illustrate his reliance on physical might. In 1 Samuel 17, verses 8 to 10, Goliath issues a bold challenge to the Israelite army. "Choose a man, and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." This challenge reflects Goliath's confidence in his own power. To him, the battle is a matter of brute strength and skill, qualities he believes no Israelite can match. His taunts, repeated daily for 40 days, underscore his disdain for any opponent who might dare to face him. For Goliath, victory is assured because he trusts in his physical superiority. But this reliance on physical power reveals a deeper flaw. Goliath sees strength only in what is tangible, ignoring the possibility of divine intervention. This sets the stage for David, whose faith provides a stark contrast to Goliath's arrogance. 2. David's trust in God. David enters the narrative not as a seasoned warrior, but as a young shepherd. In the eyes of the Israelites, and certainly Goliath, he is an unlikely hero. Yet, David's response to the situation is shaped not by fear or doubt, but by an unshakable trust in God. In 1 Samuel 17:37, David declares, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." For David, his past experiences as a shepherd are not merely proof of his own abilities, but evidence of God's faithfulness and protection. This faith gives him the courage to step onto the battlefield without hesitation. David's decision to face Goliath is not rooted in physical strength or military strategy, but in his belief that God's power transcends human limitations. This faith empowers him to reject traditional weapons and armor, instead choosing 5 smooth stones and a sling. a choice that seems foolish by worldly standards, but ultimately proves victorious. 3. Faith and fear. One of the central themes of the narrative is the contrast between faith and fear. The Israelites, despite being God's chosen people, are paralyzed by fear in the face of Goliath's size and strength. Their focus on his physical power blinds them to the possibility of divine intervention. In this way, Goliath becomes more than a warrior. He symbolizes the fears and doubts that prevent us from acting with faith. David's courage, on the other hand, comes from his ability to see beyond the immediate threat. He recognizes that the battle is not his alone, but God's. In 1 Samuel 17:45, David boldly proclaims to Goliath, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." This declaration shifts the focus of the conflict. It is no longer a contest of physical strength, but a demonstration of God's sovereignty. David's faith allows him to act with confidence, even in the face of overwhelming odds. 4. The lesson of the sling and the stone. David's choice of a sling and stone is a powerful symbol of faith in action. While Goliath relies on traditional weapons and armor, David's simple tools highlight the idea that faith does not require elaborate preparations or resources. Instead, it requires trust and the willingness to act. When David slings the stone and strikes Goliath on the forehead, it is not just a moment of physical triumph, it is a spiritual victory. The stone, guided by faith and divine providence, becomes a tool of deliverance. This moment demonstrates that even the smallest act of faith can overcome the greatest challenges. 5. The battle belongs to the Lord. At its core, the story of David and Goliath is a reminder that true strength comes from reliance on God. In 1 Samuel 17:47, David declares, "It is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." This statement underscores a central truth. Victory does not depend on human power, but on divine will. David's success is not a result of his own skill or bravery, but of his willingness to trust in God's plan. Through this act of faith, David not only defeats Goliath, but also inspires the Israelites to reclaim their courage and trust in God. 6. The timeless relevance of faith. The story of David and Goliath resonates with readers because it speaks to the challenges we face in our own lives. Whether it's fear, doubt, or overwhelming obstacles, we all encounter giants that seem too powerful to overcome. David's example reminds us that faith can give us the strength to confront these challenges, no matter how daunting they may seem. His story teaches us that faith is not passive. It requires action. Like David, we are called to step onto the battlefield, armed not with worldly tools, but with trust in something greater than ourselves. When we do, we may find that the giants we feared are not as invincible as they seemed. In the next section, we'll explore the broader lessons of the David and Goliath narrative, focusing on what it teaches us about courage, resilience, and the human spirit. Let's continue. What can we learn? The story of David and Goliath resonates far beyond its historical and biblical context. It's a narrative that has captivated the imagination of millions because it is deeply relatable, offering profound lessons that apply to every generation. Whether we view it as a literal account, a metaphor, or a combination of both, the encounter between the young shepherd and the towering giant is a timeless reminder of courage, faith, and resilience. But what exactly can we learn from this extraordinary story? 1. Courage is not the absence of fear, but action in the face of it. One of the most striking aspects of David's character is his willingness to confront Goliath when an entire army trembled in fear. The Israelites, despite their training and numbers, were paralyzed by the giant's size and strength. They saw Goliath as an insurmountable obstacle, someone who could not be defeated. David, on the other hand, didn't deny the danger. He recognized Goliath's power, but he refused to let fear dictate his actions. His courage stemmed from his faith in God and his conviction that the giant's defiance was not just a threat to Israel, but an insult to God. By stepping forward, David demonstrated that courage doesn't mean ignoring fear. It means acting despite it. For us today, this lesson is invaluable. We all face challenges that seem larger than life, whether they're personal struggles, professional setbacks, or societal issues. The story reminds us that courage begins with a choice, to face our giants head-on rather than retreat in fear. 2. Faith can turn weakness into strength. David's strength was not in his physical prowess or his weaponry, but in his faith. He knew that victory did not depend on his own abilities, but on God's power. This confidence allowed him to face Goliath with tools that seemed laughably inadequate: a sling and a few smooth stones. This is a lesson that transcends religion. Faith, whether in God, a cause, or even oneself, can transform weakness into strength. It shifts the focus away from what we lack and onto what we can achieve with determination, resilience, and the belief that something greater is at work. David's story teaches us that we don't need to have all the answers or all the resources to overcome challenges. What matters is having the faith to act, even when the odds seem impossible. 3. Preparation matters, but it's not everything. While David's faith played a central role in his victory, it's important to note that he wasn't unprepared. As a shepherd, he had honed his skills with a sling, defending his flock from lions and bears. These experiences gave him the confidence and ability to use his sling effectively against Goliath. This teaches us that faith and preparation go hand in hand. Believing in a positive outcome is important, but it doesn't negate the need for hard work and readiness. David's triumph reminds us that even the most extraordinary moments often rely on the foundation of ordinary, consistent effort. 4. Challenges can be opportunities. To the Israelites, Goliath was a threat, a seemingly invincible enemy who mocked their faith and courage. To David, however, Goliath was an opportunity, a chance to demonstrate God's power and inspire his people. This perspective shift is critical for modern life. Challenges, no matter how daunting, often carry within them the seeds of growth, transformation, and even victory. When we face difficulties, we have a choice: to see them as insurmountable obstacles or as opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. David's story reminds us that the way we perceive our challenges can shape the way we respond to them. By approaching obstacles with faith and courage, we can turn them into opportunities for personal and spiritual growth. 5. True power lies beyond the physical. Goliath's size, strength, and weapons symbolized physical power, and to the Israelites, it seemed unbeatable. But David's victory shows that true power isn't always visible. It lies in qualities like faith, humility, courage, and determination, attributes that can't be measured by worldly standards. This is a lesson that resonates in our everyday lives. In a world that often values external achievements and appearances, David's story reminds us to look beyond the surface. The greatest victories are often won not by might or material resources, but by inner strength and character. 6. Leadership is rooted in trust and vision. David's actions didn't just defeat Goliath, they inspired an entire nation. His faith and courage gave the Israelites the confidence to overcome their fear and engage in battle. This moment foreshadows David's future as a leader, a king who would guide Israel through both triumphs and trials. This aspect of the story highlights the power of leadership rooted in trust, vision, and purpose. David's victory wasn't just personal, it had a ripple effect, empowering others to act. As leaders, whether in our families, communities, or workplaces, We have the ability to inspire others by embodying the values we wish to see. 7. Small actions can have big impacts. Finally, David's story teaches us that even the smallest actions can lead to monumental outcomes. A single stone, guided by faith and skill, was enough to bring down a giant. This moment reminds us that we don't need to wait for grand opportunities to make a difference. Often it's the small, courageous steps we take that create lasting change. In the end, the story of David and Goliath is more than an ancient tale. It's a guide for navigating the challenges of life with faith, courage, and determination. It reminds us that no matter how intimidating our giants may seem, they are never too great to overcome. The key is to trust in something greater than ourselves, prepare for the battle, and take that first bold step forward. As we close, reflect on this. What giants are you facing in your own life? And what small, courageous action can you take today to begin your journey toward victory? Let David's example inspire you to face the impossible with faith, knowing that even the smallest stone can change the course of history. What do you think? Could Goliath's strength have been supernatural, or was it the result of genetics and training? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you for joining us on this journey through scripture and history. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Timeless Bible Journeys for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, remember, the greatest battles are often won not with strength, but with faith.